All right. The last thing, I just want to look ahead to the weekend and kind of how some of the shows are performing, because we have pretty much five big shows combining WWE and AEW this weekend. They'll be doing Dynamite and Collision in Garland, Texas, where it's far enough outside of Arlington that I don't know how many people are, especially if you're going to these shows, if you're taking in two more nights, and the ticket sales would indicate these have not spiked by any discernible measure, given it's attached to the big weekend. But Friday night, they're at Esports Stadium in Arlington, where they had the residency last year. So far, only 4 matches are announced, with Athena Thunder Rosa, Bandito against Takeshita, the Sons of Texas against the Infantry for the tag belts, and Lee Moriarty versus Blue Panther for the pure title. So I imagine come Thursday, we're just going to get a dam opening up of match announcements. All in Texas on Saturday. Currently, tickets out 20,799 from the last check from WrestleTix, which, how do you view that number? A week out, and now that we're here for the stadium show.
What's the capacity of the stadium? Like that we know of for this sort of setup?
I think it can hold somewhere around like 35 to 40. It's not going to be configured there. The gate is going to be their highest
North American gate
ever. It'll be their third highest ever, behind the 2 Wembley shows.
One of the highest North American gates.
Period.
Period.
Non-WrestleMania gate. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I don't think you can look at anything at that as anything but a success for this company, who is routinely doing what, like 4,000, like maybe on a good week. Yeah,
4,000 is a good Dynamite now.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's a really great success. Obviously, if you're comparing it to the first Wembley show, okay, it's not like you could frame this however you want, but I think the bare facts are 20,000 plus people are paying to see a non-WWE show, and I think that's still a tremendous success.
What is your, like, this looks like, I would have to say, of the 3 all-ins, excluding the 2018 version, I mean, I think this has been the best promoted one, in terms of, like, what the top 3 matches are, and they've spent really months leading in these directions, when you're taking into account the Owen and the overarching story of Moxley. You knew where you were going with Omega and Okada from the time that Omega came back in December. So I mean, from a pay-per-view standpoint, I think that's really interesting. Do you think that do you feel that the WWE's running of that same day, even if it doesn't overlap, do you see that having any type of impact on those buying this show, as opposed to, I'm going to watch my 2 hours of wrestling and it's going to be on NBC that night? It's G1 Climax season, and that means the Post Wrestling Cafe has you covered, with podcasts covering every single tournament match. Plus, we've got Rewind Away going back to 2005 to review Vengeance, featuring Triple H versus Batista in a Hell in a Cell match. John and Way are going to be reviewing F1 the movie, starring Brad Pitt, and of course, XL editions of Rewind to Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown, ad-free, with the news of the week and your feedback. Sign up now at postwrestlingcafe.com.
I'm going to say not at all. Like, I mean, you are talking to somebody who's pretty deep in the bubble. And I think if you're somebody who's actively watching AEW anyway, there's no chance you're going to miss the WrestleMania of AEW's calendar. The question is, okay, like if you're on the fringe, like somebody who doesn't usually watch Dynamite, but like might want to tune in like once or twice a year to purchase a show like this, is a Saturday night's main event going to sway you? It's possibly, but I would, like, if you're the biggest Goldberg fan in the world, okay, he's your favorite wrestler, you're gonna want to watch his retirement match. Is that somehow going to prevent you from trying out All In? Yes, very possible. But I also feel like I think that's minuscule in the grand scheme of things for AEW. That's probably not necessarily the fan that you're trying to attract anyway. I think predominantly they're still in a year where they need to satisfy the fans that they do have, so that through word of mouth they might acquire a bit more people that might tune in every single week for Dynamite. And by all accounts, certainly by my own personal viewing, they've definitely delivered on the build for this card. And for the card itself, the matches themselves are, even on paper, are arguably the biggest matches they could possibly make.
Now, we should also note, originally, like when WWE made the Saturday night's main event, it was to run head to head with All In Texas, and AEW made the move to place this in the afternoon, which WWE cannot move this NBC special into the afternoon. Would your answer be different if this were running head to head on that night?
I don't think so, John. Again, like it kind of goes back to maybe what I was saying. Like again, like it might sway the biggest Goldberg fan, the type of fan that might only occasionally watch an AEW show that isn't feeling all into like paying whatever $20 to $40 for a pay-per-view anyway. Maybe, but I also I'm the hype for this card to me feels pretty big, and ultimately to the audience that AEW is craving, I think it's a chance for AEW to again play the underdog in their story, which is essentially how the company was built anyway, and it's a chance for the company to look better than WWE by having a better show than whatever WWE will be producing.
I think now that we're here, like this Saturday night's main event card, it feels like it's a one match show. I think that so far they've announced 3 matches. I think the Orton, Drew, and Seth LA Knight matches, like they're just matches. They don't feel special. Everything is built towards this retirement match. And even in the lead up to this, it's been Gunther just state like this guy does 5-minute matches. And it's like, if you're the viewer, it's like, your interest is wrapped up in a match that very conceivably could be 5 minutes. And I just don't know if that's going to hook enough people that they would be, necessarily like, if you're looking for what's going to be more bang for my buck, it's his pay-per-view. And I just don't know if WWE's goal of what this weekend was to be is going to bear that same fruit, take interest away from AEW. It doesn't feel like it, but we'll have to see how it plays out. And with fans that are more on the periphery for what they're interested in watching on Saturday.
You could make the argument it's done more harm than good for the WWE's perception.
I think the perception, and I think, listen, this Great American Bash show I think it's totally been thrown out to slaughter. I mean, they're running center stage. It's not a big venue, but they have not sold it out yet. They've got 593 tickets out. Now, a sellout is like 750 to 800, so it's not like it's going to be empty. They'll probably be full, but this is a show that to me is you're sacrificing your NXT product for just having head-to-head competition that is... I think it's just a disservice to your own developmental brand in this case. Like, I just feel this is going to be, whatever happens on this show, it's going to be the throwaway show of the weekend that is lost.
It will be, yeah. And
as opposed to them having their own night or their own weekend. Like, had they run this past weekend, like there would have at least been attention on the NXT brand. And I don't think there's going to be hardly any people focused. Even WWE is overshadowing this product on its own day.
Certainly, yeah. I think honestly, John, at this point, even Evolution is sort of like risking, a level where it could be irrelevant by the end of the weekend. Now, I think Evolution is a much more unique show, and I think there will be a lot more interest in discussing it, and people maybe even tuning into that one compared to certainly the NXT show. But in terms of like interest and build, I've seen a lot more criticism for that particular show than anything.
Well, let's end off on these because it's the back-to-back nights at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta. Saturday night, there's over 10,700 tickets out for Saturday night's main event. So that has been, that is certainly a success for the show. However, the next night, Evolution...
Now, hold on a second. Is that a success for Bill Goldberg's last match? Like, would you not have expected a sellout, like, right away?
What are we talking about for State Farm Arena? Do you have, like,
what's the number you have again?
10,700.
So let's go Bad Blood.
What did Bad Blood draw?
Let's see. That did 16,902.
Okay, so they could still move that. Yeah, there's something to that. If
that's 700 off. Sorry, 7,000 off.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall you get like 12,000. I still look at that as like a success for a
Bill Goldberg's last match.
Size. I honestly think that this is.
No, they haven't really promoted it as Bill Goldberg, or at least not as loud as you.
It was mentioned tonight, but yeah, you're right. I think in hindsight, like adding the title to it, I don't think it heightened the interest in the match, but it did lower the aspect of the retirement, and they've made it less like it's almost like we can't push this too hard because it's almost as though we're like. Okay, the guy's leaving as champion potentially.
We can't use the biggest selling point of this particular match in our advertising because we also, we don't want to double the Cena story. Yeah.
Now, Evolution the next night is at 4,800 tickets out. And I'm sorry, that's a really disappointing figure for a venue of this size. And this tells me that 2 nights was too much at State Farm Arena, at least for what they are promoting for these 2 nights. Like, it's fans that we're going for one night, and it's your real hardcore audience that is going a second night for Evolution. That I can't. This was going to be this past weekend, this Evolution show, when it was first like penciled in and then moved, and they're doing the back-to-back nights in Atlanta. But yeah, I've seen, a lot of criticism. This has been a hastily put together show. The one big feud you have going into it is like Naomi and Jade, like the title matches. It's the champions picking their challengers, which is not the most interesting way to set up title matches. You have no Bianca on this show. You do have the Becky match that has been set up. The 4-way tag is what it is. You lost the Nikki Bella Liv Morgan match on top of it, but like this will be an interesting one to look at. We're not going to know what the Peacock number is, but if we're just going by live attendance, there will be the question if there is not a follow-up Evolution in the next year, and how this one is viewed internally, at least a week out. Like, we will see what this final number is come Sunday.
Yeah, it's honestly hard for me to see them trying this again. It probably is going to be unfair that I think, like, maybe the blame internally could be just on the idea that, hey, like, it's an all women's show, meaning like half of our stars or you can argue most of our stars aren't going to be on this thing. But I think you can also place equal blame on the promotion. You can blame, I'd love to know how this show would have done without Saturday night's main event, without Great American Bash, or All In. Like, if All In places any sort of like I don't know, difference in how much this might sell live. I don't know. You know what? But then we can make excuses forever. Like, I mean, Beyonce is supposedly playing across the street or something and taking a lot of the hotel space from its audience. Ultimately, I think it's a combination of those factors.
Like, this was penciled in for Mohegan Sun this past weekend. They moved it to Atlanta, and yes, like, that is probably somewhat advantageous running the same arena both nights. But we understand, like, there was a big part of gamesmanship to this, and you have to look a week out that this AEW pay-per-view, ultimately, like, we can look at the attendance. The big number is what All In does on pay-per-view. But I mean, from the looks of things here, I think you can very clearly look that Saturday night's main event, I think it'll do a good number on NBC. We'll see what Juice Goldberg has. I'm not so worried about the Saturday show, but they've absolutely harmed NXT in this Evolution show, I think, by going with this strategy that we can look at. And you can get away doing 2 nights of WrestleMania. You can definitely get away doing 2 nights of SummerSlam, but just doing 2 specials on one weekend in the same market, you have to have the right... you have to have 2 really, really big shows to pull that off, and they do not have 2 big shows for this weekend.
No.
And that is the state of pro wrestling going into this weekend. We'll have lots to discuss in the coming days about all of these shows.